Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez, Council Member for District 6 and Chair of the Economic Development Committee. Very excited to have our first meeting on July 10. It's an exciting agenda, especially starting with the purple line. As you all know, I don't think people know this, but one of the first things I did when I was working at CASA many years ago was making sure that the purple line will actually be a project that will help communities and not displace them, including the small business community. 20 years after, we'll still talk about it, and we'll still talk about building the purple line. But we're gonna start with that project, and we have the council member for that particular area, Kate Stewart, is here joining us today. And we also have the great pleasure of having State Delegate Janelle Wilkins, who has done just such an amazing job in Annapolis on the purple line, especially with the business community. So we are actually gonna start off by having her share a few words about her work in Annapolis and any updates or any remarks that you would like to share on this topic. That'll be great. And thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate the invitation to be here and the longtime partnership with many of you. Thank you so much, Chairwoman, President Glass, for his longtime partnership, as well as Councilwoman Kate Stewart, who was then the mayor of Tacoma Park, and greetings to all of the council members who serve on this wonderful committee. I'm very glad to be a part of this conversation today. So for the record, as we do in Annapolis, I don't know if you all do that here, but for the record, I am Delegate Janelle Wilkins, represent District 20, Silver Spring, Tacoma Park, White Oak areas of Montgomery County. And I wanted to start off by sharing just a quick history of how we got here in terms of the work that the state has done on this issue and the funds that have been distributed by the county. This is the time that I joined the General Assembly in 2017. Businesses came to us very strongly around the really important critical impacts of the Purple Line construction. So not only around funding and their finances and their revenue, but concerns around parking, around the communication from the contractors, the potential for electricity and water cutoffs, access to deliveries, the pedestrian and car access, so many challenges that these businesses are facing who are on it along the route. So these are, as you all know, primarily small businesses, immigrant-owned businesses, and minority businesses as well. And they do include Prince George's and Montgomery County. And so I want to lift up the work and the partnership between Prince George's County and Montgomery County, as well as Districts 16, 18 in Montgomery County, and Prince George's Districts 21, 22, and 47, because it really has been a collaborative effort. So in 2018, with the support of the District 20 team, I introduced a legislation that started as a tax credit for these businesses to help offset some of the financial challenges around the construction. And after feedback from the businesses related to wanting the funds more immediately than an end of the year tax credit, we eventually introduced what is now the Purple Line Construction Zone Grant Program. I won't go into all of the twists and turns, but many of you know that it has been quite a battle, particularly with the previous Governor Hogan, around getting the funds into the hands of the businesses. So from 2020 to 2021, there was legislation introduced, fenced off funding, vetoed bills, veto overrides to get these funds in the hands of businesses. But I think one of the more important things to note is that in the history of the state of Maryland, other than this program, this is the first time ever that the state of Maryland has ever provided funds to offset the cost of the impact of construction to businesses. And so when I first brought this legislation and started to request this funding, this was unprecedented, and I was almost laughed off of the hearing table, but we were able to get it done with the strong partnership of the council and the stakeholders and the businesses. So ultimately, we were able to get that initial $500,000, but I should note that the funds that we secured the state, they're divided between Prince George's and Montgomery County. So I think that we ended up with a little over 200,000 of that 500 in those initial funds. After a veto override of a bill that the governor had vetoed, we were able to secure another $2 million over 2 fiscal years, so $1 million per fiscal year as well, so that we were able to be where we are now with the funds that we're going to be discussing. But again, I want to note, I believe about $400,000 of the million comes to Montgomery County, because it was identified that Prince George's has more businesses, which I will get to as well. So that's some of the history of how we got here and the strong partnership between the state and the county. And the last couple of things that I just wanted to bring up is that we've had a really great partnership with the Elrich administration and collaborating and getting the funds out to the businesses. I did have an opportunity to provide some feedback on the process. And I think that one of the most important things to consider is that we have to really look at equity and how we divide up the money, in the sense that not every business is impacted the same, right? A Bonifant Street restaurant is a lot different than maybe an accounting firm that happens to be along the route. And I think it's really critical that we look at this and get data and information on the specific impact, and that when we allocate the funds, we take those things into consideration. Finally, around what's next, I think that it's a really important moment now to take steps and take stock in deep analysis around the actual impact that has happened to these businesses financially, the other ways that I mentioned, as well, in terms of access that that pedestrians and patrons have to the businesses, so that we can really be able to, with specifics, identify what has taken place, how have our businesses been impacted, have numbers, have data, have qualitative analysis, so that that can help us to go back to the state potentially around what it looks like to work to secure more funding when it comes to the delays that have taken place. I think we're looking at 4 to 5 years of delays at this point when it comes to the Purple Line completion. But where we are now with the funding, really looking at how has this funding really helped the businesses, what are the continuing challenges, and us really going back and doing some really in-depth analysis to figure out how we can move forward. So thank you again for your time, thank you for inviting me, and thank you again for your partnership.
Thank you so much for your remarks and for all the work that you're doing in Annapolis representing Montgomery County. A lot of people think that everything that we accomplish in this county cannot happen just with the council. It has to be in partnership. And we do have an amazing Montgomery County delegation, and you're a great example of that. So thank you for being here. And I think all your questions and your remarks is a great transition, awesome transition actually, to discuss the Purple Line Rail Project Business Development Grant. And I'm wondering, Mr. Smith, if you want to kick us off.
Happy to. And following suit, hi, Gene Smith, manager of the Montgomery County Business Center. I'm also joined by our program manager for this fund, Mr. Bicola. I'm just going to do a quick introduction, thank yous, and I'll turn it over to the program manager, who's been doing an excellent job on just making sure the businesses are receiving fund under the second round of funding from the state. So again, want to really thank Delegate Wilkins and the District 20 team, and obviously the Montgomery County delegation for fighting for these funds. This is very hard-fought funds and very important to our businesses, and this is something that we've been looking forward to and been working very carefully to make sure businesses receive this funding. I also want to just thank the county that it's more than just the business center involved with this. Obviously, the Silver Spring Urban District and the Silver Spring Regional Center has been deeply involved, especially on Bonifant Street. And so as much as our team is out there meeting businesses and working with businesses, it is not solely the business center that is working for these businesses down in Silver Spring especially. It is a team effort, and we continue to primarily, given our team's capacity, to focus on the grants as opposed to the full comprehensive review. And so that's what we're going to look at today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bicola to share more about some of the summary between the 2 rounds of funding we received from the state and where we're headed.
Thanks, Gene. Good morning. My name is Teresa Bicola. I am a program manager for economic development programs. I oversee the Purple Line administration as well. Can you hear me now? I oversee the Purple Line grant administration as well. We appreciate the opportunity today to speak with you about the Purple Line. Madam Chair, if you allow me, I would like to start with phase one, at least to give you some background information so that we can connect some dots and, possibly appreciate the progresses we've made so far. Under phase one, the state provided $231,000 late 2021, early 2022. That's when we administered the program. Out of the $231,000, there was a 10% administrative fee that went to our resource partner, LEDC, Latino Economic Development Corporation, and we're left with $207,900 that went to the businesses. We started the program, like I said, late in 2021, early 2022. The application was open only for 10 days. In that 10 days, actually, there were over 140 businesses applied for the grant. But because we had only $207,000, we had to choose only 42 businesses. Out of those 42 businesses, 41 of them received $5,000 each, and the last business received $2,900 because at that point we ran out of money. So fast forward for phase two. When we started thinking about phase two, there was one thing that we agreed as a business center with my manager. We went out to businesses to see what was a lesson learned. One of the things that we did is we had our resource partners, LADC being one, Purple Line Coalition, SPDC, our regional service center director and his staff as well. We went out to the businesses and spoke to them. And one of the things that they told us were, they said, because we used lottery method to choose those 42 businesses out of 140 plus businesses, and they weren't happy, and that was a good lesson for us actually. So we came back and they said, we're not going to use that technique anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that every qualifying business receives some piece of the pie. Out of $815,000 that were granted from the state for phase two, we made sure that everyone gets what they deserve basically. So in order to do this basically, we had to rely on some data. So we had to have list of businesses that were impacted by the construction. MTA had put together list of businesses that were impacted initially. So that list had 320 businesses. Our resource partner LEDC, since they work with these businesses on a regular basis, they added 105 businesses that were not on the list but impacted, that were close enough to the construction area. As a result, the list went up to 425. Remember what I said with phase one, there were 42 businesses that received the first grant. So we had to exclude those 42 businesses out of the 425. Then there were some 13 businesses that we had to exclude depending on the state guideline. One of the guidelines was for businesses to have less than 20 employees. There was Whole Food Market, there was CVS, there was Marriott, there were others that had more than 20 employees, so we had to exclude those businesses as well. As a result, at the end of the day, we had 370 businesses as a universe for phase two. So, like I said earlier, we said we were not going to exclude any business. We're going to divide the $815,000 to all 370 businesses. So roughly, there was the agreement was between myself and my manager. There was $2,200 that we're going to disperse to each business, assuming that all 370 businesses would apply and qualify under the guidelines. And at the same time, what we communicated with the business owners was, at the end of the program, when the application closes, and if there is money left over, we go back and disperse the remaining amount to balance with the first phase, which is $5,000. So first one, $2,200. If there's money left over, we're going to disperse the remaining amount. So the application was open for 2 months, unlike the previous one, for 2 months, and there were 95 businesses applied over those 2 months period. Out of those 95, there were 41 businesses that were on the MTA list and qualified under the guidelines. So we paid them $2,200 right away. In addition to the 41 businesses, there were 32 businesses that were not on the list, but they were close enough to the construction area, but we put them on the back burner for the time being. And once we were done with the 41 businesses, we added another $2,800 to those 41 businesses to make $5,000 for everyone. We still have money, so what we did is we went back to the 32 businesses And we went out and visited those businesses, knocked on the doors, business by business actually, to determine if they were close enough to the construction. Out of those 31 businesses, only 3 were denied. One was on the Four Corners, University and Collinsville, which was not close enough to the construction. There was another one on the 16th Street that was not close enough. There was another one on Wisconsin Avenue. All those 3, other than that, 28 of them qualified. And as a result, we paid them $5,000. When I say paid them, altogether as we speak now, on the agenda, there were 62 businesses. But since we submitted the data, there were 7 more businesses that we approved. So we have 69 total right now at different stage of the payment, getting paid $5,000 each. So with 69 businesses under phase 2, there were 42 under phase 1. Basically, we're looking at 111 or so businesses that have received $5,000. You may ask, how about the remaining balance? What we're going to do is we're planning to reopen the application as phase 3 in few weeks. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to encourage businesses outside the MTLEs that we used in phase 2, and encourage those businesses to apply. Then we, as they qualify, as they go through the guidelines, we pay them $5,000 each. At the end of that application, like we did with phase 2, we go back and review the process. And if we still have money left over, what we're going to do is we're going to disperse the remaining balance for all the recipients, whatever money we have at that point. One thing that I should note though, for phase 1, the state contract limits to $5,000 per business, not for phase 2. So we're going to work with the state on those businesses so that everyone gets the $5,000 plus whatever remaining balance at the end of phase 3.
I'm gonna have to stop you, and I'm sorry, because I always tell the committee not to ask questions until the very end, so I'm gonna break my own rule. Just this time, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I think you're right.
How much money do we have left? Do we have like $500,000?
Close to $470,000
okay,
as we speak now.
And when you're saying right now that you want to expand to other businesses, and you're saying that you give each, and I was a small business owner, so I'm just putting my business owner hat. $5,000 is nothing. That doesn't even pay half of the rent. So it's what are we talking about here? Is because I understand there was a limit in the phase 1 about how much money each business will get, but there's no limit now.
Correct.
So why don't we focus on the businesses that we really need,
Okay.
that are truly impacted, instead of going to somewhere else? Makes no sense.
So we're not limiting. That's what I said. Only for phase 1 that we had $5,000 threshold. So when we started in the first place, there were 370 businesses. So assuming that every business applies and every business qualifies, there was a $2,200 that each business was going to get. Now what we did is, with those 69 businesses, they have received $5,000. We're going to open the application again. However many businesses that we receive now, they will receive $5,000. On top of that, we review how much money we're left with, and we disperse the remaining amount to each recipient, which means they would get, on my estimate, probably $8,000 to $10,000 at the end of the program. So it's not $5,000 that we're limiting.
I appreciate all that Mr. Pickle has shared. I think I just want to reemphasize that there's a universe of about 400 businesses along the purple line that are impacted, and we have about $1.2 million total from funding from the state. And again, really, really appreciate all the work the state has done to access that and grant that money to the county. I think from the business center's point of view, we could not figure out a way, given how the first round went, and 140 businesses applied, but most didn't get funding. We wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to access that funding. And the reality is, and as Delegate Wilkins shared, most of these, we're not giving money to like real estate agents or other service-oriented. Almost all of them are retail and restaurants. Those primarily who's applying, who's primarily been impacted by the purple line construction. And so again, the additional phase for phase 3 is to acknowledge the fact that under the first round of funding from the state, there was a limitation that businesses had to have existed before August 2017. And then the second round, we chose to use a universe to make sure we did outreach along the purple line and have impacted businesses reached. And so we used lists that were provided both by the state and LADC to target that. Phase 3 is meant to just make sure any business that may have missed it in those first 2 rounds, we agree there may not be very many, but we do not want to have a situation where any business says, listen, I didn't apply for phase 1 because I started in August of 2020. I didn't apply for phase 2 because I heard about some list. We just want to avoid all of that, and the idea of phase 3 is to ensure that every business has a chance. That is along the purple line. Our intent is to make sure businesses that are deeply impacted do receive additional funding, but we do want to make sure that we have spent our time. We have 2 years to use this funding. I know that businesses are hurting now, but we want to use it as judiciously as possible, but also as equitably as possible. And so we wanted to make sure we covered our gambit there, and so that is why we have taken our time to do it this way.
Yeah, this is why I always hate government, and I know I'm working with government. All that red tape, like you guys have no idea that when you have a deadline, you gotta pay your bills. You don't just wait and sit on a pot of money. You just don't do that. Della Wilkins has a question, and then we'll continue. And I'm sure my colleagues here have lots of questions. So we're going to start with Council President Evan Glass after. Oh, no, but she has a question first. Go ahead, Delegate.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to add to your question. We are completely on the same page with that concern. This is not new to the administration in terms of conversations that we have had. I think that it is challenging to not have any sort of equity lens when it comes to demonstration of need. I think that when you just take the pot of money and just divide it between the businesses and basically just give everyone the same amount, everyone is not equally impacted. And with the $5,000 not always being a meaningful amount to these businesses, us taking the time to understand and go a little bit deeper on how people are impacted, these businesses are impacted, and providing more funds to some of those who need it to actually really get into the true financial relief, I think is something that's critical that we should look into in future phases, and the future funding that we are fighting very hard to get for these businesses in the state. So I think that should be maybe a little bit more thought on how we can look into more of an equity lens around how the funds are delivered, rather than this sort of just equal division that seems to be the current process.
Perfect, thank you. Do you have something else in the presentation that you would like to mention?
No, I think given the timing, we should just move on to your council member
perfect.
questions.
We're going to start with questions from the committee. Council President Glass.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for providing this update. And Delegate Wilkins, good to see you here this morning. Thank you for all of your efforts and for persevering. I know that you've put this forward, you and colleagues in Annapolis have put this forward a number of years before Governor Hogan finally acquiesced and recognized that a very important light rail project has some short-term growing pains associated with it. And our responsibility in government is to help those who we might be causing some distress to. And in the long run, this is going to be an excellent project when it is finally finished, hopefully soon, hopefully. But in the meantime, this is a really important grant process. And as the chair impassionately stated, we need to get this money out, and hopefully we will be able to get another round. I will leave that to you and your colleagues, depending on how long the purple line continues to be constructed. But with regard to the dollars and cents, the chair noted how much or how little $5,000 goes. And I'm curious, along this corridor, particularly the Silver Spring to Langley Park area, do we know what the average $5,000 grant is going towards? How is this being used? And how is it comparable to other budgetary items that a small business might have? Is it a month rent? Is it half a month rent? Do we know what some of the benchmarks are for what this money might be used towards?
I can speak to specific examples as I was going around businesses and speaking to businesses. One, hair salon as an example, I think it was on Georgia Avenue and Fenton. The business was about to close when I met him, because of rent, the business was dying and things like that. $5,000 meant a lot to him. So, and I think the last time was I drove by on Thursday. He's in business, and that is so exciting. Again, we don't have data to give you how much $5,000 is worth, basically, in terms of rent and things like that. But there were business owners that were about to close their business, but because of the $5,000, they sort of extended their life a little bit in the business.
I know that $5,000 will mean a lot to many of these businesses, and also appreciate Delegate Wilkins' point of having an equity lens and making sure that the different businesses with different needs get what their actual needs might be. I would suggest that as we start developing the third round, that there be a follow-up question of what were these funds used for. I think that would be, I hear the collective yes from my colleagues, but I also understand trying to balance the need to get the money out as quickly as possible, the constraints that you all as an agency, as a unit might have to be able to do some of this follow-up. But as we're evolving, recognizing the first round was conducted through a nonprofit partner who does this work, who is excellent at this work, but that we wanted to use these funds as they were intentioned, and while hold on to that 10% so they can go directly back to the businesses, so that the second round evolved. As we evolve to the third round, I would request that we have that follow-up question so that the appeal can be made in Annapolis to say that this helped them stay for an extra month or 2 months or whatever the cost, whatever it might be. And then last question I have, because I know my colleagues have as well, have there been any businesses that have received funding twice through either of these two rounds?
No.
Good. Again, going back to the equity point, wanting to make sure I was writing all the numbers down, the 140 gone up to 425 with only 42, wanting to make sure that we get money to as many businesses as possible. Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Smith.
I apologize. I was just going to say that we have complete control over the application. So for phase 3, we can even add that question now. And our team is already readily available, and we have contacts for these businesses, and so we can work with them now to access a little bit more about how that funding was used. So I don't think we need to wait for another round of funding.
Yeah, and again, balancing the needs of now versus the information that will be required for the future, and would even suggest getting input from Delegate Wilkins and anyone else along the corridor to see what information they could have to further make their case in Annapolis for future funding. Great. Thank you. And again, Delegate Wilkins, thank you very much for your work.
Councilmember Stewart has to leave shortly, so I'm going to let her ask a question.
Thank you. I appreciate the chair and the rest of the committee, since I don't sit on this committee, but many of the Purple Line stops are in my district, and so in particular the ones in the downtown Silver Spring area and Langley Park, where many of these businesses are located. So I thank you for holding this session today, and just want to say thank you to Delegate Wilkins and all her perseverance and work. I think I was at a Purple Line meeting with her a number of years ago when then Secretary of Transportation, when she or another colleague asked a question about funding, said, absolutely not. We do not give funding to businesses for construction projects. That has never happened. But I think it's a testament to Delegate Wilkins and her perseverance that she didn't take that as the answer. And that's why we're here today. I just had a couple of quick questions because I think there, Mr. Smith, as you said, there is confusion on behalf of the businesses regarding what they can apply for. Thankfully, we do have a number of businesses that have opened during COVID, and so the idea that they can apply for these funds is really, really important. And so getting that information out to them. I just want to clarify, so if someone did receive money in phase 1, will they be able to reapply in phase 3?
No.
No. Okay.
They don't apply, but what happens is, like I said, once we close the phase 3 and we still have money, obviously, we'll work with the state if we could, because there's a restriction in terms of how much they could get during phase 1. Right. So we'll work with them, and if we have okay, we'll go back and disperse the money.
Okay. All right. So that's something we have to go back to the state with, and then go back to the businesses who did receive funding in phase 1. Okay.
We just want to clarify, make sure that is, like, it appears that it would be totally allowed through the agreement for the second round of funding, but again, since we're working with our state partners, we want to work with the Department of Commerce at the state to make sure we're all on the same page about how that funding will be used, since businesses from the first round of funding receive funding. And as already been pointed out by Delegate Wilkins and the chair, I mean, the funding that remains, we do have some discretion in how we want to use that. So I think we can be working with both the state and with the committee and the council here to figure out if there's an additional way besides just evenly distributing it across all the businesses that have received it. But again, I think that we want to make sure when we do that the messaging is very clear, so that if a business receives more than another business, it's clear why that happened.
Yes.
And I think that is the nut to crack in this whole process right now, given the limited funding. And so I think we were, again, looking, given some of the points of making sure the money gets out as quickly as possible. But I don't think we are limited in how we can do that for the remaining funding after we're done with phase 3.
Great. And one other follow-up question, because I know, I believe during phase 1, one of the reasons that LEDC was picked as a partner was to have it as a, an organization that had deep roots in the community. And I also know, given the first tranche when I was mayor, that there were huge barriers for language for many of our business owners, and being able to apply to things in something other than English, whether or not it was in Spanish, or for many of the businesses in the downtown Silver Spring area in Amharic, was very important. Are we able to continue that?
Yes. So one of the good things actually in the business center, we have somebody that speaks Amharic, Spanish, English. So as part of the marketing and business outreach, what we did is there was an information session held in the Regional Service Center and Silver Spring Innovation Center, 3 of them, one in English and Amharic and Spanish, and videos posted on social media platforms and things like that. We did extensive marketing on that, yes.
Great. I'm glad to hear that's going to continue for phase 3. Those are all my questions, and I'm sorry I do have to leave the committee meeting. I really appreciate you letting me sit in for a lit today, and thank you for all your work.
Thank you for joining us. So phase 3 is open to anybody who has not received money, and phase 4 is for everyone, regardless if they received in the past or not. And you're going to show us, you know what, let's do this. As a follow-up, can we get an email with the criteria that you're going to have in phase 4? And really with a focus on equity, meaning really focusing on the businesses that are the most impacted. How much money do they really need to thrive? That should be it. But I need to see that in writing as a follow-up. Who wants to go next? Me. I heard me at the same time. Councilmember Welcome, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your work, Delegate Wilkins. This is really important. So I think the dilemma is getting the money out early versus getting the money out to who needs it the most. And I think that issue of demonstrated need is an important aspect. But I also know that can really bog down the process. So the question of what does the $5,000 go for, that to me isn't as big of an issue, because if their revenue has been decreased by at least $5,000 during this process, it doesn't matter where they spend the money. They could spend it on rent or utilities or personnel. Because they've lost revenue. So I think that's the issue where I would like to see is what is the lost revenue. And I think that from the perspective of going back to the state for additional funds, I think the equation is not how much their expenses are, but what is the lost revenue that's specifically due to the construction. And whenever I'm down there, and I see the street, and I just can't imagine how much money they've lost because people just don't want the hassle of going down there. So I think that I know that it might be difficult to look at revenue. Have you thought about how you would do that if you did it?
Sure. I mean, I'll just say that we have experience administering the Small Business Assistance Program, which was authored and championed by former council member Nancy Navarro, that we did in Wheaton. That administratively was a heavy lift initially because it required a detailed review of business revenue, et cetera. But the reality was is many of the businesses that were able to demonstrate a loss of revenue during the Wheaton reconstruction project received most of their loss, but some of those were in the hundreds of thousands. I think for this process, understanding the speed and limited capacity for our team to review financials was something that we just did a quick look at. I think getting into detail of actual revenues over pre-construction. I mean, I think that's the reality. Some of these businesses came in during construction, and so I'm not sure what the baseline is for them. Some of the businesses have been there very long, so we could have a better baseline, but it does require them to take time to put those financials together, and that was part of the reason for the Wheaton redevelopment project and the Small Business Assistance Program. We contracted with LADC, Maryland SBEC, and the county itself to help those businesses, technical assistance-wise, to put their financials in order in a way that made sense so that we could review that. So I do think it's possible. I just think administratively it would be a heavy lift for this particular project, but something we can think about.
Yeah, and I think that if we're really are talking 5,000, because 5,000 is just a blink. It may not be worth them to go through the time to do that. However, when we look at long term, and from the state perspective, when we look at long term about how we help businesses that are impacted by these massive construction projects, we need to think much larger than 5,000. And so it might be that, is there a way to even just do a case study of some sort, or to look at a small, just a study of the revenue impact. So I think that for that perspective, and as far as where the money goes, the money's going in, to pay the bills, and I'm assuming that I can't imagine any of them aren't impacted by at least 5,000. But I think the expanding to businesses that were created after 2017, I think is really important. We saw that during COVID, the restrictions put on businesses that were in existence pre-COVID. The problem with that is businesses start every day. And if we have that time lag, then we're not going to have new businesses starting. So I think that's important. And then just the last question, the original numbers of the number of businesses that were eligible and only 95 applied. And we're going to go back again and try to get more people to apply, but do we know why many businesses didn't apply?
This is my assessment again. I think it could be the universe or the businesses that have been impacted by the construction could be that many, I think. And again, we're going to see it when we open the application during phase 3. But if you are referring, maybe they're not aware, there was no business outreach or communication and things like that, I would say we've done an excellent job when it comes to that. 2 weeks straight, the whole team from Business Center, including our manager, were knocking at the doors of all of those 370 businesses. We either met the business owners and spoke to them, or dropped off flyers, and we followed up. Not only that, actually, from phase 1, like I said, there were close to 100 businesses that were excluded because they run out of money. We directly contacted those businesses, and we had 71 or 72 businesses reapplied actually under phase 2. And from data perspective, there were close to 58% of the total applicants said they heard the information from us, which means our team being out made a big impact, along with our resource partners, of course. So we did extensive marketing and business outreach. So my assumption is those are the businesses, the maximum businesses that have been impacted. That's my assessment.
Great, thank you. And I would assume that the business center now has that information and are helping these businesses in other ways other than grants. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. No, First of all, data is data, and so we now have contacts with business owners all along the Purple Line. Some of them we had before, but yes, definitely in the sense if there's additional follow-up that's needed, either business liaisons are working with them directly on that, or we're addressing the issues through forwarding them to connecting them to the right resource partner and or right entity. Again, as I shared at the beginning, some of their issues related to construction are well beyond the business center, even well beyond the county, given the design of the project. And so some of those we have referred to the Purple Line Coalition, particularly as they work with the state and the contractor to make sure those issues are addressed if possible. But yes, we are continually following up with these businesses as they're now part of the universe that we're focusing on and assisting beyond just grants.
Great, thank you.
Just to follow up on a comment from Councilmember Balkan, I'm going to request as a committee, I'm going to request OLO, Office of Legislative Oversight, to see if they can do a study on the impact of the Purple Line construction on the revenue of businesses. So I'll get back to you and see if that can happen. That'll be an amazing report.
Yeah.
Nothing like that has been happened, right?
Nothing specifically that project, and we're happy to work with OLO if that's the council's wish to provide
Yes.
contacts to businesses that might be good case studies.
I'll contact them on behalf of the committee and then we'll ask them to follow up with you. Okay? I'm gonna, before I go with you, let me go with Councilmember Sales first.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Wilkins, my good friend from Annapolis. Thank you so much for pushing for these resources and making sure that they are getting to the businesses that need them. We know that most of the businesses that are in the vicinity of the Purple Line are small minority-owned businesses, and so I'm so grateful that these businesses are being made whole in the meantime and are taking advantage of the process, which has led us to this development process. But I did have a few questions today. I know we are asking about how many businesses have received the funding, but are we hearing from any of these businesses that have received these grants, what the impact has been to these businesses? Is there a customer satisfaction survey that's been developed to hear back from these businesses?
We're not done with the program yet, so there's still work in progress. Most of the businesses are at different stages of payment with county central vendor registration system and things like that. So we have not done those surveys,
Okay.
but there were businesses that called and even came in person to thank us because this is long overdue. That we're very appreciative of what we've done in terms of the funding.
It would be nice to have those testimonials so that when the delegation goes back to talk about how these businesses have fared since they received the funding would be helpful. So as we're thinking about the next phase of awards, and you mentioned that outreach was the door knocking and also the flyers that were left behind. Were those done in multiple languages? I know the county executive has his newsletter, social media. Do we know how people found out about the program? Are we tracking that in the application?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the questions in the application is how did you hear about the program?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, 58% of the applicants said they heard through MCEDC staff, which is business
Very
center.
good. Okay.
That doesn't mean that again we're not taking credit off of the other resource partners. LEDC is working on the ground with those businesses.
Okay.
I think 10 or 12% said they heard from LEDC staff as well. Everyone else said they did not answer that question, which means the 58% is a big deal for us. Obviously, our team made an impact, significant impact.
So are we diversifying the partnerships with other corporations?
Correct. Yeah, the Purple Line Coalition, SBDC, all are in the loop and they're working closely with us.
Well, no, I know you have LDC, but are we working with the Black Chamber? Are we working with any of the other chambers, the county's chamber?
We have shared information with them, all of them. In terms of feet on the street, again, I think it was primarily the organizations that are already there plus the business center.
Okay.
So, for example, I mean, if you want to use like the Black Collective, as you shared, we did not ask them to specifically have feet on the street through our contract to do this work, given their focus, which we'll get to in a little bit later. Their contract is focused on other work. So, but in terms of messaging, narrative, and sharing information, that was done through as many channels as we could.
Okay.
There
And-
was an, I'm sorry,
Go
there was
ahead.
an African American advisory group that we're working with as an example in that particular location in downtown Silver Spring. They are very active. We'll be working with those as well. So they participate in meetings that we have, and we communicate with them. We have their contact information.
Okay. Is it like an informal advisory group or?
That's one of the executives
Oh, okay.
advisory groups. So
Okay.
the Business Center does work with the various advisory groups through the Office of Community Partnerships. And so again, the reality is, forgive me to go a little tangent here, I mean, there's no wrong door in the county.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of ways businesses contact the county, whether it's through resource partners, whether it's through other staff in the county. Part of the challenge for myself and my team has been to figure out how we help the rest of the county know that the Business Center is here and is a resource as these staff are already meeting businesses. And so the African American Advisory Group is one of the executives advisory groups.
Oh, okay. Okay. And are we still getting applications in, or is the site shut down?
It has been shut down now, so we're going to reopen in a few weeks.
Okay. And what does the application process look like? Like approximately how long should it take, the languages it's in?
The application is a one-page, straightforward, easy to maneuver and things like that. Once we receive the application, we take maximum a week basically for us to review the process and things like that, and then it goes to finance for payment. But the reason why it could take more than a week or so for businesses to receive the money is mainly on the side of the business. There are sometimes missing documents that we reach out to submit documents and things like that. Once that is done, they have to be registered in the county central vendor registration system. That could take some time as well. But in all this process, we handhold majority of the business owners.
Okay.
Myself included. We call, we go in person, we help them, navigate through the process until they receive the money.
And so what documents are you requesting for them to upload into the system?
Driver license is one,
Mm-hmm.
W-9, and they have to be in good standing with the state of Maryland. Those are 3 documents that we require.
Oh, okay. All right.
Excuse me, I know Mr. Bickler just said this, I just want to really emphasize that no business was rejected because they didn't provide the documentation.
Oh, good.
Our team, especially Mr. Bickler and others, worked very carefully with them. And so in the end, a business can simply apply by just putting their name down and an address, and then my team will work with them to make sure that they can get the documentation in and that they meet the qualifications for this program. And so it could be a 5-second process for a business. It may take additional follow-up, but again, I just want to really emphasize that no business was restricted because they didn't follow the application. My team worked with them on that.
Good. And I think the customer satisfaction survey would help with tracking the financial impact of the award pre and post, since we don't have that data available. And then my last question, what are the state mandated reporting requirements? Are they collecting demographic information, and do we get access, or can we get access to that information?
Sure. Yeah, we have demographic data is one. They're requiring and reporting on a yearly basis. We did one already, and happy to share.
And we could just forward that to you,
Okay.
or the whole committee.
All right. I yield. Thank you.
Before I turn it to Council President Glass, I see that Delegate Wilkins has a question, and I know we have a hard stop at 9:30 for this item. So, go ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you again to the Council President and to Madam Chair for convening us. I just wanted to, before I have to run out shortly, conclude with 3 quick points. One is that the state has allocated $2.5 million in total between Prince George's and Montgomery County. And so with that, it is absolutely critical as we close the loop around a thread that has been throughout this entire conversation, is that it's really important that we are able to share what the impact, the financial impact has been. That should absolutely be a question that is asked. It doesn't have to be scientific. It can be quantitative and qualitative. I'm seeing a lot less foot traffic in the last year compared to, year whatever. My revenue is $50,000 less. Some kind of information around what the impact is on the application. Also, if we're giving people money, we probably should ask that question about what the impact is and confirm that there has been some kind of financial impact. And also on the back end, being able to tell the state and share with the state what the funds were used for. That is really, really important. So making sure that we include that in future applications and future communications is really critical as we go back and work and fight for additional funding. Second, there was an important point that was made around the fact that the Business Center has identified additional businesses that have been impacted. And that's really important because MTA is allocating the funds between Montgomery County and Prince George's County based on their list. So if we're saying that there's actually more businesses than they're identifying, it means that we're getting less funds on our side than we should be getting. So that's an important follow conversation, I think, for us to figure out to make sure that that list is accurate and that it's full so that we're getting our full amount of funds in the future. So I wanted to leave a note on that. And finally, I would be very remiss if I did not thank the Latino Economic Development Center, who's really been a part of this process from the start, who worked very closely with the businesses, especially Javier, who I know is here in the room today. So really want to thank them for their work, as well as the Purple Line Corridor Coalition. Thank you again for the invitation to be here today.
Thank you. Great points at the end, and we're going to follow up with everything she said. Right. Okay. Council President Glad.
Well, I'm glad I am following the delegate because she summed up everything I just wanted to say about having the data on the front end and on the back end, because the whole purpose is not only to see the impact, but to be able to make the case in Annapolis that we need more of this funding. And I would even go further to argue it would make the case that these types of programs are essential for future transportation, or to expand it, public investments. You know, this is a public project, and we want those who are impacted in the short term to be made as whole as possible, or to be helped out, because we know the community will benefit in the end, and we want to make sure that we're there for those who need the help now. So beautifully said. I wholly agree, and also appreciate the shout out to not only for LEDC, but also the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, of which I'm a steering committee member. I'll certainly follow up with them to see if there's been any information of late. A lot of the work is focused on housing right now, so we'll circle back and see what the economic impact, and clearly if the OLO report is able to move forward, we'll make sure they're getting the mix too. Yes. So thank you.
Beautiful. I know you mentioned that in a few weeks you're going to open the application again. Can you be more specific? Few weeks is too general for me. Can you tell me September, October?
It is going to be early August.
Early August.
If not late
even
July.
Better.
Again, what we wanted to do is we wanted to wrap up with the process that we have now, so that we don't mix up stuff, because we need to know how much we're left with exactly as well. So once we're done with this, like I said, early August is the timeline.
So you send a press release, information for not just this committee, but the entire county council. I mean, we'll especially council member Kate Stewart, and also council vice president Inder Friedson, to know. Okay.
We can certainly share that information, and again,
Please.
the team will be on the street again, because that's the primary way I believe most of these. I don't know how many businesses are going to see a press release. They might.
No, but I'm saying it so we can tell the press and we share it with everybody. The point is to share.
Yes, it is.
Beautiful. If there are no more questions, I thank you so much for this great briefing. And thanks again to Delegate Janelle Wilkins for being here, representing our delegation. And next we have the next in the topic is the program supporting small businesses is the next panel. So thank you so much. And as folks get settled down, we are going to start with Ms. Marlene Malkinson, if you want to kick it off.
Absolutely. Thank you. I want to say this is very exciting because we've collected here, or I should say the executive has pulled together in the attachment to this packet, a really wonderful summary of all the different organizations that are receiving funding from the county and all of the different programs. And it shows you just how widespread it is, how diverse it is. What the committee's been interested in, and I know you're going to want to follow up, is how we measure the impact of all of these programs. And in many cases, you'll see that we're doing a lot of outreach to businesses, but we need to get to the point where we can say, are the businesses actually benefiting from all the outreach? But what's really exciting today is we have with us many of the nonprofits who are helping in this effort, and they're gonna, to me, this is the highlight of this meeting, is to hear from them and what they're doing. And I'll ask whether executive staff have anything they want to say before we start turning it over to our partners.
Sure. I'll just again, Gene Smith with the Montgomery County Business Center, in case people are just tuning in for this one. Two things. First, really grateful that our resource partners have joined us today. Again, want to highlight, these are not all of our resource partners. We wanted to work with the ones that are specifically in the non-departmental account. Most of them are here. Two, really want to give a shout out to my team who did yeoman's work on answering the questions for council staff while I was away. So again, a shout out to Nadia Clute, who's our small business navigator, Mr. Bigelow, who's the program manager, and then Stephanie Sawyer, who's our contract manager, who did a lot of the work to pull this information together for Ms. Michelson. I'm really grateful. So with that, I don't want to, we did create a couple quick slides at the request of the chair for the groups that are here today, just to provide an overview of what's already in the packet in terms of some scope and some information, so I can put those up when the groups are talking. Other than that, we're here to answer your questions. I should apologize. I should also quickly introduce our partners that have joined us today. So I can't see all the way. So Mr. Parchment, Tony Parchment, is with the Black Business Council. Ken White is with the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce. Kim Jones is with the Black Collective. Javier is with LEDC, or Latino Economic Development Center, and I just met you today, so I'm sorry.
Ness Perry.
Here, go ahead and just say it.
Ness Perry with the Latino Economic Development Center.
And so, again, really grateful that they're here. We work closely with these partners all the time through our contracts to help businesses grow and stay in the county.
Thank you so much. This is a really exciting briefing that we're about to have. Who would like to start then?
We should just go ahead and start with the Black Chamber Collective, and Black Business Council, because that's the first slide.
Beautiful. Okay, let's do it.
Good morning. My name is Ken White, and I'm the president of the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for this opportunity to come and speak before you and to share some of the things that we've been able to accomplish via our partnership with the county. Questions were sent out, so I have the questions written here. Briefly describe your mission and organizational values and how the county partnership achieves the party's collective goals. The Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce is driven by our mission of to be a strategic partner in supporting the starting, sustaining, and growing of successful Black businesses in Maryland. We are guided by our organizational values of connect, educate, and advocate. And through that, we have been able to be very helpful to our business community. Access to training and education. The county partnership has allowed us to provide training to our members and to the residents of Montgomery County. One of the key challenges that's faced by Black entrepreneurs is the limited access to relevant training and educational resources. Through seminars, webinars, we provide Black entrepreneurs with necessary skills skills and knowledge to thrive in their respective industries. Strengthen networking and membership. We have been able to provide networking opportunities for our members. And through those networking opportunities, they've been able to partner and meet with business professionals, government officials, and leaders throughout the community. Through our networking events, workshops, and networking sessions, we foster a supportive ecosystem that encourages collaboration and learning among the Black entrepreneurs in our community. Access to resources. Montgomery County has become a valuable resource for the Chamber. That includes access to funding opportunities, business development programs, and support services that empower our business owners. By working together, the county and the chamber can leverage their respective networks and expertise to ensure that Black businesses have the necessary tools and resources for success. Again, we've done webinars and seminars. We've had over 500 Montgomery County registrations for our seminars in the last fiscal year. We've had 24 webinars and seminars. We've had 7 networking events, which have had 250 county participants. We've had many of our programs are duplicate, the attendees are duplicate, but we filtered out. And so for the fiscal year for 2022-23, we had 289 Montgomery County residents participate in our training services. Scheduled coming up for the end of this year, we have our veterans programming coming up. We have business planning series coming up. We have boot camp coming up. We have marketing series coming up. We have starting boot camp series coming up. And this year we had a plethora of webinars. We had government contracting. We had government contracting with the state, government contracting with the federal, government contracting with Montgomery County. We've had, I think that's it. So that answers that first question. Do you want me to stop? I see some.
We're gonna ask questions at the end, but I do want to hear from you more specifics on not just how many events you're having, which is great, but what are they producing in terms of jobs creation? How many people are being hired? That's the type of things that we need to hear.
Okay, so I don't have that data at this point. But so our point when we applied for the grant was we want to assure that Black businesses within the county have access to information and resources. And how are they getting that information and resources? So that's been our primary effort for this year, is diversifying how folks are getting information and that they're present. Mr. Parchman is going to speak later about the Black Business Directory. One of the questions that we brought up when we were talking about the funding was we were not able to identify who the Black businesses were in Montgomery County. So how can we provide resources to them if we don't know who they are? So that's what we've been focusing on. Our partnerships, the numbers are important because they're showing up, and so they're showing up. That means that they're getting the message, and they're getting the message via partnerships, i.e., if we're partnering with MCEDC, if we're partnering with Women's Business Center, if we're partnering with Montgomery College, the folks over at the innovation centers. Now our database has grown from 3,000 to 4,500 in the last 12 months. Our membership has grown from 300 to 500 in the last 12 months. So that's my key measurement right now. Now long term, we'll develop the surveys. We just did the government contracting, so it's going to take a while for us to measure who was successful at getting a contract and making it through the process. That's a long-term goal of ours. Business development, of course, we're a chamber, so we're tracking who's doing business within the chamber. So how we have testimonials in here, success stories about getting business and networking and getting access to partnerships and collaborations, so on and so forth. So those things are taking place.
Great, that was great. Thank you.
Okay. Let me keep going. There's a whole lot of stuff here. Okay. What problems do our business owners face? Access to capital is always an issue. Networking opportunities can be an issue. Professional services can be an issue. Key things that have come out that I've learned in the last 6 months: limited access to government contracts. As we were doing this government contracting series, our folks are feeling, and may not be true, but their concept is that it's too complex of a process to get a contract. They think the criteria may be a little stringent to some of our folks as far as their financial well-being, so that restricts them from access to capital. They also feel that leveling the barrier for entry, they feel like the same people are known in the procurement environment, and so new people getting in is difficult. Mentorship. one request that I get on a regular basis is from our small businesses are, can you provide us with a mentor? And it's a great idea, but the inventory of folks that are willing to mentor it's a difficult process. So my long-term goal is to be able to create, maybe through the partnerships with the SBDC and MCEDC and the county, if we could develop some type of mentoring program for small businesses, that would be mind-blowing. Again, access to capital is always an issue, and we did a feasibility study, and we'll be presenting that to the county exec's office shortly. There are some gaps, and there are some areas that some of our neighboring jurisdictions, they have programming that we could probably take a look at and see if we could input those into our system as well. Next question was, how do you assess the efficacy of your programs? Well, again, the key for me was people are showing up, and different people are showing up. And we also do surveys, and we get feedback from our events. We record our Zoom, and we save and highlight our the feedback that we're getting. Also, we're surveying our partners and getting feedback from them on what's working, what's not working. Again, I mentioned long-term. I'm working on figuring out how to create long-term measurements. Our folks aren't responding real great to surveys, so that's a struggle. You don't always get the actual results. We have, however, brought on a marketing team, so we are now doing surveys on a monthly basis. Our membership application gathers information and data as to where businesses are at that particular time, and we'll be following up on an annual basis to figure out how they've grown and what programs have been effective over the past year. I do have testimonials, but in short, I won't read the whole testimonial. I'll just read a couple of excerpts from. So the first testimony comes from Strategia Solutions, their web design and development company. Their owner is Solomon Luke, and he is located in Rockville, Maryland. And just an excerpt from his testimonial. Through the partnership with MBCC, we have not only expanded our reach, but we've also played a crucial role in driving the growth and success of our business. One of the key benefits of our collaboration with the Chamber has been the opportunity to showcase our expertise in web design and development through targeted events and workshops. The networking opportunities facilitated by the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce have been invaluable in building strong relationships within the business community. And they're networking and getting business, and they developed our new website for us. So they're doing great. Another small business, Apricot Branding. Eddie Agassi, located in Silver Spring. He does brand strategy, naming, identity design, web design, digital and print media, and much more. An excerpt from their testimonial: the Chamber's unwavering commitment to advancing economic opportunities for Black-owned businesses aligns perfectly with our own values and aspirations. Together, we have forged a partnership that has far exceeded our expectations, allowing us to create transformative programs and initiatives. He has been getting lots of business from the Chamber. They got a contract with the city of Mount Rainier to do business. We've hired him to do business for us, and he's now doing a 6-part marketing series for us for the Chamber. Aside from county funding, what are some other ways that our community, including our private sector, could strengthen and support the small businesses and entrepreneurs? Well, already, this partnership has been great in providing physical locations for us. So we've been utilizing space at the innovative centers, and we've been utilizing space with Montgomery College, and we're looking at a space. Well, we're having an event at the MCEDC, hosting a series over there. So that's been valuable for us. It's been really valuable because we've been able to move around the county. And Montgomery County is kind of strange in that people in Silver Spring don't want to drive to Germantown for an event, so we have to be strategic in plotting things all over the county for them. So that's been very helpful that we have a resource to rely on.
Councilmember Balcom liked to think of it the other way around.
So that has been very helpful, and also Nonprofit Village. Leveraging our communications channels. So one way we've been able to grow and get more participation in our events is through our partnerships. So when we partner with the Women's Business Center, or we partner with MCEDC or the Innovative Centers, and we get registrations, those folks get added to our database, and so therefore those folks are now getting ongoing information about the resources that we have available. So that has been really great. I think that that has a lot to do with how we've been able to grow our membership and grow our database over the last 12 months. Again, more collaborative partnerships to leverage the expertise of like the Women's Business Center, the Small Business Development Centers, MCEDC. We actually don't want to duplicate what's already out there. We would love to partner. We have to make sure our members, our community, that they are aware of what programs are out there, and that if we collaborate with those organizations, then I think our members will take advantage of those opportunities. I think they kind of know they're there, but they're not being trusting of what's out there. So I think if we collaborate and kind of validate and partner, that will go a long way. Again, I referenced the mentorship. I think if we could work together with the private and public sector to create some type of mentorship program, that would be amazing. I'm going to stop right there.
All right. Thank you so much.
I'll stop right there.
Yeah, no, that's great. We can, and just a reminder, folks, since there are quite a few of you here and we have limited amount of time and we have questions too, just make sure it's brief, straight to the point, and then we'll follow up. Thank you. Who wants to go next? Kim or?
Sure.
Do you want to go, Ms. Jones?
All right. Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. Yeah. There we are. Is that better? All right. Good morning. Good to see you all. Thank you for having us here. The Montgomery County Black Collective, I think many of you are very familiar because you either were with us at the very beginning or have come on board and supported a lot of the work that we're doing. So we started several years ago, it was back in 2020, right around the pandemic time, with a lot of leaders in the community, faith-based leaders, business owners, Black-led nonprofits, and other community activists, looking at the disparities in resources for Black organizations. And this ended up in the Fed committee in the previous administration, in the previous council administration, and it was nice to have a chance to work with council directly on work groups week after week, trying to kind of bang out what was going to come out of this and how we could address some of those inequities. You know, it was a great moment when the Fed committee brought the bill forward, and Councilmember Glass was the first to sign on that wasn't on the Fed committee in support of that. So, you know, we are very proud of that. But we exist to raise awareness, to create engagement, and to advocate for resources for primarily Black businesses, but we work with all minority and small businesses. We are promoting racial equity and social justice. Our values include community, collaboration, dignity, accessibility, supportiveness, and learning. We are primarily involved with community engagement and looking at environmental scans on business opportunities and what the perceptions are about doing business in Montgomery County. So you'll shortly see a report that's coming out once we've submitted that to the county's business development office. Then you'll probably see the results of that report. So I haven't even had a chance to digest what the data is, but we had an extensive survey that started back around January, and then we went through a series of six or seven focus groups around the county with business leaders, looking at what the challenges are, what the perceptions are. One of the things I can tell you is that primarily people felt that there was a lot of opportunity, and there was a lot of good opportunity to work with Montgomery County and do business in Montgomery County. The challenge becomes the know-how and the access to information, and some businesses or nonprofits don't know how to access information or don't know how to get to the right resource. Our signature program is the AMBER program, which started as a longer-term mentoring program, one-on-one individualized coaching. It is now a 16-week program. We just graduated 9 individuals, 9 businesses from the first cohort. They went through for 7 months, and they had an individual coach that worked with them one-on-one every week on whatever their business challenges were. We also provided subject matter experts that were relevant to some needed legal help, some needed HR help, some needed marketing help. So we provided subject matter experts and opportunities for them to meet with leaders in the community that were either procurement officials or other leaders that would get them access to actual contracts and opportunities. Again, the know-how and the access, a lot of the businesses just didn't know how to access or use the information or the resources that are available. There were too many places for them to go, and they were having trouble navigating. The county and MCEDC and all of the other partners put a lot of information out and are available to people. They just don't know what the steps are to kind of go through. We look at the individualized goals. We look at the key performance indicators through this 16-week program. There are 3 cohorts that are in process now. Each has 5 or 6 business owners or nonprofits. There is a nonprofit cohort as well, and they will graduate from their program around the end of September. 1st of September, we'll start 3 more cohorts. So each cohort has about 5 or 6 people. The first cohort, as I said, started with 10, graduated 9. We do a lot of evaluation, process evaluation, because we want to know throughout the process, are we doing things right? How was the application process? How are we getting to you? How are we looking at onboarding once you are accepted to the program? What's the complimentary coaching like? Are we getting you the right subject experts? Then we also are doing outcome evaluation measures, which is looking at whether we've increased knowledge, improved operations, the skills to overcome challenges, and the achievement of the goals. We do use a proprietary assessment tool. We're looking at changing that just a little bit, but it gives kind of a numeric indicator of internal operations for where these companies start, where they are midway through the program, and then where they are at the end. So I'll just give you a little bit on numbers. 7 months of the program, 8 fellows were provided subject matter experts. 5 of them received individual technical assistance in accessing capital. 1 fellow qualified for $500,000 in bank loans by the end of the 7-month program. 1 fellow won a $10,000 local pitch competition. 2 hired more, that's a wrong number. 2 hired more staff. 2 increased their revenue within 7 months. 1 company returned to their pre-pandemic revenue level after being in the program. 2 of the fellows partnered on a county contract. So those opportunities, actually getting to meet with the recreation department, procurement people, MCPS, procurement people, all of those folks. 1 company received the required business license that they had been trying to get for 18 months within 2 months of being in the program, because they were getting the one-on-one attention every week and the accountability.
Ms. Jones, very quickly, when you say license, I mean those type of examples, maybe we can follow up afterwards. That's what I need to know. They're specific, because it shouldn't be that difficult.
It's just that they didn't know how they were supposed to be going about doing what they were doing. They were going about things the wrong way. They were going to the wrong office.
Well, that tells me that
getting them to the right resources made all the difference.
We're going to follow up on that example after committee.
Okay. And finally, I would say that companies need a chance. They need a chance to, to battle against legacy companies that have been out there getting contracts. Sometimes you see companies that come in, there's like a 1-point difference. Oh, I lost the contract. But is there any way that we could look at splitting a contract and giving a company an opportunity? So, if everything stays the same in terms of how all of the procurement is done, it's going to get the same results. The other thing that I would say is that we're leveraging the funds that have come through. So we subcontract to the chamber. So the chamber holds the major contract in the county. The Black Collective subcontracts and runs the AMBER program and the environmental scan program. But we've been able, as the Black Collective, to leverage and partner with MCEDC, who is helping us put together videos that we're going to have up on our website by late fall, in doing business, some of those key topics in doing business. We've been able to leverage money with Truist Bank. We've been able to leverage money from Pepco. So this expands all of the work that we're doing. And we have about 6 other applications pending with other philanthropic organizations. So, it's the voice of the county that when, you put forth an opportunity like this, we get to take that and we get to leverage it for other people. Then start to believe it. They say, well, if the county's invested in you, okay, now we'll invest in you. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much, Ms. Jones. That was a great presentation. We're gonna next, if you would like to please introduce yourself.
All right, thanks. Tony Parchment with the Black Business Council. Thanks so much for having us here. I think each of these will get progressively shorter, so mine will be a little shorter. The Black Business Council's mission is to grow black businesses in Montgomery County by fostering a shared commitment of support, accountability, and social responsibility. We do that by building a community aligned with our core values, which I'll list here shortly, doing our part to make sure to share information about the products and services offered by black-owned businesses in the county, and building relationships with organizations that support the local business community. We also share information about tools and resources that help business owners define and execute their strategy. And I'll go through our core values, which are really important to us just because our focus is bringing people together that share these core values, and by doing that, we'll help them grow as leaders and business owners and help them then grow and thrive in the business, in their business climate. So the core values are growth mindset, which means setting challenging goals aligned with our vision, with the company's vision for the future, and continuously seeking tools and best practices to help grow their business. Mutuality, which is a willingness to build deeper relationships and deeper understanding by listening and sharing time and talents. Accountability, which is setting goals and sharing those goals with trusted advisors, understanding key metrics that lead to successful achievement of those goals, and being open to frank, honest feedback about development and execution of the strategy to achieve your business goals. Trust, which is sharing challenges openly and understanding that there won't be any judgment and that any information that is shared is confidential. Respect, which is actively listening to help and being open to different perspectives and alternative ideas. And finally, and just as importantly, community, which is actively engaging in your community and creating a positive impact. And through the county, that's with the Black Business Council. Through the county funding, we've been able to do some outreach for the Black Business Database, the BBD, to get business owners registered and have a central repository that people can go and search. It's free, that people can go and search to find any black-owned businesses that are registered in the database in the county, because the belief is if you make people aware of the amazing talent that we have in our county, and you also create a way that business owners can work together to talk about the challenges that they're facing, we believe that'll help businesses grow and help people become aware of what they can, the types of products and services they can access in the county. So through the partnerships with the MBCC, the Maryland Black Chamber, and the Black Collective, with the county and also with the MCEDC, we've been able to build the database of over 500 business owners. And I think most importantly, during that outreach process, you start to see the energy people have in realizing there's a community of people that are also in their same phase of growth that they can talk to about the challenges that they're dealing with, and they can talk to them about the resources that have been able to help them grow. I think it was great to sit here and listen to the conversation about the Purple Line Grant, because when I talk to business owners, because they're heads down focused on just managing their business and operating their business, they don't understand that there are those types of resources that are out there often. And when you have an organization that, like the Black Business Council, that pulls people together and where you can talk to peers that are in your same phase of growth, that a peer may say, hey, have you heard about this opportunity, this grant that I was able to apply for? And that'll automatically give them some credibility. Instead of, it's great to hear from the county, but if you hear it from somebody that has gone through the process and can help you walk through it, it provides a lot of extra value.
Mr. Parchment, I'm going to take my, since I'm the chair, I can ask questions anytime.
Okay.
That database that you are referring to, which is awesome, having over 500 businesses is a great deal. Do you identify within the database which businesses are ready to move up to the next level? Like, I'm thinking of accelerators, right? How can we help them be bigger?
Right.
Is that such thing already happening?
So we identify the number of employees that they have. What we don't do, and what I love the fact that you asked that question, we need to identify what phase of growth they're in, because there are a lot of businesses that are they're part-time entrepreneurs, they are solopreneurs, and they don't have any desire to grow past that. There are other businesses that would like the opportunity to grow. They may have 5 people, they've stagnated there because they're working in the business and not on the business. They would like the opportunity to get some extra capital, get some access to some mentors and coaches that can help them grow, and then also get access to some growth capital that they can use to
team up with big businesses.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm a former business owner, and one way to go bigger is when you team up with the big guys and have that performance on your, on your business profile to get those big contracts. So that's the big focus.
The other thing to go along with that is when you identify smaller businesses that can work together in team to partner and to go after things that they don't have the capacity to do individually. But our belief is it starts with understanding that those businesses are out there and starting to create the dialogue with them in a trusting, meaningful environment.
Further comments?
Just a couple comments about the challenges. One of the challenges, and this is one of the challenges that people face, is taking the time to really understand who their true customer is. A lot of people get into business because either they've been laid off or they have a passion around something, but they're not really understanding their creating an ideal customer profile, understanding what the market is for their product or services that they're offering, and building a strategy around that. And then after they do that, the other challenge is finding the startup capital that they can use to get traction by following their strategy. And then, in my mind, most importantly, they don't have the social capital, meaning the networks, advisors, and coaches to help them navigate through their strategy and execute on their strategy. So.
Thank you so much. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you so much for those questions. Now we're going to move to the Latino Economic Development Corporation. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. My name is Javier Rivas. I'm the Senior Small Business Development Manager at LEDC. I've been with the organization for about 4.5 years at this point. I was glad I was here for this Purple Line conversation because that was how I started at LEDC. That was my first experience in this field. Walking the streets and knocking on businesses' doors and getting their stories and getting the stories of the impact the construction has had at that point. It hadn't quite developed as further as it is at present, but the pressure had been felt, and it was a conversation that had been had for many years prior to 2019. There was always like the Purple Line is coming, and then nothing was happening, and then it just all of a sudden, boom, and a street is divided in half, and customers can't get to their doors, and so yeah, it's important to continue that. Getting those much needed funds out there to the folks that have been impacted the most. So I was lucky to be here for that conversation. But LEDC has been around for about 32 years. We just had our 32-year anniversary. Our mission is to drive the economic and social advancement of low to moderate income Latinos and other underserved communities by equipping them with the skills and tools to achieve financial independence and become leaders in their respective communities. So, ultimately what that means, is helping build wealth in communities where, for so many reasons, they have not been able to build that wealth, and a lot of that is done through entrepreneurship, housing, first-time home buyer programs, loan programs for small businesses. And we appreciate the support that the county has had, and count us as a strong partner in delivering that message and delivering those tools to the communities that need it the most. In terms of, I can move on about talk about the biggest challenges that our clients face. I mean, I think if you talk to any business along the corridors in different business districts, I think you'll see this. You'll hear the same concerns that other county residents face. It's like an increase in crime, an increase in safety. How do you make sure that their businesses are protected, that they're that they can open safely or close if they're close at the late in the night, or if they're I hear of coffee shop owners that go in at 5, 6 in the morning, and there's people hanging out in front of their stores. So I think that's a concern that I've heard a lot, and I think it's something that should be addressed for sure. Another challenge, obviously, without stable housing, there's no customers that come visit your store, right? And understanding that there's affordable housing around the businesses that are serving the specific populations, it all works together, right? You can't have a stable business without a stable community around it, right? And so I think that's a main concern. That also you can build on that and saying that stable commercial real estate, I think, is also a concern, right? Understanding the contracts that they are signing with property owners, if there even is a contract that they're that holds them in place. If they're surviving on a month-to-month basis. I think all those, and if it's a contract that has existed, or a business has existed for 20 plus years, why are they still seen as a risk, for these property owners? For why is there personal guarantee clauses in leases that after someone has served a community for 20, 30 years, and their personal assets are at stake, if they were to default. So I think that's something that especially comes through my experience with the Purple Line corridor. I think that I think anytime a big development project comes along, there's a lot of speculation from property owners in terms of property values and whether there will be redevelopment and there will be opportunities to bring on tenants that might pay more for these properties. So I think that's something that I would like to see addressed in the future. So just the basic needs of the folks that come to LEDC and to our coaches. I think even though there is a need for financing, is really understanding the reason why that financing, why we offer loans. It's it's not like an emergency assistance kind of service. I think it's a lot of the times it's seen as something that as an immediate need, and loan underwriting takes time, and I think it's difficult to explain to an individual that comes with a great need that it's not something that will come immediately, and so we have competition from same day loans, cash checking places. I think those are all difficult to go up against when our systems and processes take time. If our goal is to not to protect assets, we don't want to just lend people money that'll get them into further debt. I think that's kind of, and even with all the recent grant programs out there with the Purple Line and SBRA Phase 2, the Small Business Rental Assistance Program, I think it's even an understanding of what that financing means for some businesses. I think, and we've talked a lot, and I heard about that that conversation about follow-up after people receive this funding, and just to track, and not necessarily to track for whatever reason that those funds are used for, but also like just a follow-up with a technical assistance provider, let's say, to make sure that that investment is used wisely, and there is not just a Band-Aid for now, right? And that there is like a looking toward the future and a building of a strategic plan to go beyond the bills that need to be get paid and like the daily operational needs of a business, right? So I think, again, understanding what that debt-based financing is going to look like and how to put together a loan application and like understanding the process of that. I think we face a lot of those challenges. Business plan assistance, I think, goes kind of hand in hand with that. It's just understanding, making sure people like slow down. I think we have a lot of folks that come to us and say, hey, I want to purchase a food truck, let's say. It's like, I found a food truck, my buddy in Pennsylvania has one, I want to go buy it. It's like, okay, so do you know what the process is for establishing a license? Do you know what do you know the kind of equipment that you're going to need inside of the food truck? Do you know what so I think it's, there is this, perhaps a mentality that you have to like jump on these opportunities as they come to you. I can't say where that mentality comes from, but I mean, I think there is like a challenge in kind of helping folks slow down and kind of think about the repercussions of a decision that might bring more risk into their finances.
But also keeping in mind who you're serving. You're serving the Latino immigrant community. I mean, I'm the only immigrant on the county council. I was undocumented. And I opened my own business in understanding that if you're undocumented, if you don't have credit, it's a challenge that nobody else faces, and it's that understanding the importance of building credit to get to the next stage of your business is key, and it takes time. It takes so much time. The whole idea of a loan in my country, there was no such thing. At least when I grew up, I grew up in very humble beginnings, let's just put it that way. There was no such thing as getting a loan from a bank to buy a house. You had to find a way of getting all the money in cash to pay for a home. So when you come here, that understanding of creating a loan, of applying for a loan, creating credit, you're starting from zero. And that's the type of clients that you guys get. Just putting myself out there. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's good insight, and I think there is an immigrant mentality, perhaps a first generation immigrant mentality as well. That you just got to take the opportunity as it comes. You just got to do it. Again, whether that's the correct way to protect yourself or start a business, I think that's something that needs to be explored and dismantled, and like dismantling this like idea that you just gotta do it and work at it and it'll happen, right? I think it takes planning and time. Just another insight, I think digital access obviously continues to be an issue. I think, and not necessarily like getting people to like use computers, but I think getting people to understand that there's so many tools that are available to you, just as the fact that we have tiny computers in our pockets, and just using, like, that's how I think our communities communicate, our communities, engage with information. And, I think we've heard, like, you're not going to send a press release and people are going to read it. I think it's like you need to find those channels, like how people are communicating and where people are congregating, whether that be like churches or PTAs or, through like those kind of less traditional ways of networking. I think we've talked a little bit about like what that networking looks in some communities, but I think that's something at least I'm exploring. It's like, where do we need to do that outreach? And perhaps we are not focusing on houses of worship. We're not focusing on those PTA meetings, or perhaps like providing childcare, during some of these meetings, and the time also when we're setting up these meetings and asking people to show up, I guess, is also important. Yeah, I mean, I think after, we can talk about just I brought the final report for this last year. I think, before I go into like all the different numbers.
And make sure it's brief, because I'll give you like 3 more minutes.
3 more minutes. Yeah, I was just going to say, like, numbers don't really, I think it reflects that we're busy, right? It reflects that there's a lot of need, right? And I think internally we need to understand, like, what our role is, like, within the Montgomery County ecosystem, whether we're helping people just navigate, licensing, navigate permits, navigate registering, or do we need to focus on like growth and cohort-based instructions and making sure there's that again, network opportunity to kind of do more intensive trainings and learning, because I think I think we're stuck in that, responding to the need and responding to something that can come and be done in like an hour. It still takes time, but, and those people come back, and I think that's how we're measuring the efficacy of our programs, is that people come back to us and people like do, as their journey extends, they'll come back to us. Yeah, but it was, over 400 businesses, unique businesses over the year, it's about 1,400 plus hours of technical assistance, and that's, again, it could be like an hour of getting someone to navigate through the small business, or Maryland's SDAT, and registering, or county licensing or permitting. But I mean, I think when you look at the numbers of our Purple Line folks, Purple Line assistance could be like more intensive. It could be like 10 plus hours, of getting someone to renegotiate a lease, or getting someone to really understand like where they stand in terms of this construction project. So. Yeah, I mean, Ness, I think I'm going to let Ness talk about...
Very brief, like 1 minute, because we have lots of questions.
You got it. Just to address question 5, which mainly has to do with, some of the ways the county can engage other than just money, other than just grants. A lot of what we do on the ground, I'm the advocacy specialist, so a lot of what I do is talk directly to businesses and to our amazing coaches that Javier oversees. And a lot of what they have to say, I have to kind of be a middleman, and I would love to see a lot more engagement from the council directly to business owners. If I can be a liaison in that, that'd be great, but I don't want to have to essentially speak for them. I want them to speak directly to council and to the legislators that are making a lot of these decisions, especially in those conversations that come up with whether or not, LEDC should be included in the administration of grants or in the administration of other programs. I would love to be a part of those. However, it would be great if we could talk directly to business owners as much as possible, and provide feedback, of course, because they're the ones that will be immediately impacted by a lot of these decisions, and they're not really, in the room all the time, nor do they always have the capacity to do so. So that's pretty much all.
Because you're busy holding a business and making money.
Exactly.
I'm going to start with Councilmember Balkin.
Thanks. I've got a lot of questions, so bear with me. So thank you all for being here. It's so nice to see familiar faces and nice to meet people that I haven't met yet. So, and thank you all for the work that you do. It's very important, and so many times small businesses just need a hand to hold to walk them through the system and walk them through the process. And so I appreciate not only the partners that are here, but the staff, county executive staff that do that work every day. So thank you. So can we start with the Black Collective, Black Chamber, Black Business Council, and just and I don't know who would answer the question about the organizational structure and how many full-time staff are there. Is there I don't think there's a physical entity. Just how the, and also how the funds are broken down for what programs, because it's not really clear, for instance, the AMBER what the AMBER program does and how that money flows.
Yeah, I'll start as my partners take a few minutes to think about. We don't have information on employees, but
Yeah.
I will just note that the contract structure for those entities was defined by the council resolution in fiscal 22 when this got kicked off. And so the executive staff, which this was well before I had joined the team, designed the contracts based on that specific structure, which was, as Ms. Jones shared, was a collaboration with these partners and the council Fed committee at the time, or Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee. And so the contract and the breakdown of funds and which entity is doing what was designed through that contract. Through Executive Elrich's recommendation in the fiscal 23 budget, that was continued, although it increased in terms of volume of dollars to be distributed. So that is how that was defined, at least in breakdown of who's doing what and where. Beyond that, I'll let our partners share if they want to share specifically in terms of staff, et cetera, that you asked, Ms. Balcom, or Councilmember Balcom, sorry.
Real easy, staff of one. I'm full-time, and I just came on in January. And I have a part-time assistant who works virtually. We have an office at the Nonprofit Village in Rockville. And I work primarily out of my home.
Okay. Thank you.
The Black Collective, I just came on board full-time as of July 1. As the executive director. So I've been working in that capacity as a contractor part-time over the past year since I left Nonprofit Village, and I just brought on someone for 15 hours a week to help with some logistics.
Okay. So,
and you wanted to know about the specific amount for the AMBER program?
well, yeah. So so the funds flow through the Black Chamber, and so the funds are distributed, like how?
The contract is written, we kind of gave our wish list of things that we'd like to see done. And so the contract is divided into dollar amounts per activity, i.e. government contracting series, webinars, seminars, networking, Leadership Academy, AMBER,
Environmental scan,
feasibility study.
And then admin.
And then admin.
And so,
Actually,
No.
apologize.
No.
We do very rarely does the county contract for admin work.
There's no admin.
So
There is no admin, and I should say,
well, I'm sorry, for overhead in terms
Nope.
of, so there's no rent involved?
not
or-
for these three organizations. It's
Okay.
all output based. When they complete a task, such as a training session, they are compensated and reimbursed on that task
Okay.
based on the contract.
So thank you. So then you must sell a contract for so where is the actual dollars? Are they spent on the people who are providing the training? How does that work?
because the way the grants are written, we get a certain dollar amount per activity. So it's not reimbursement, it's per activity. So say hypothetically, if it's $5,000, so that $5,000, we get that for the webinar. That I can then use that for the consultants, for the food, for the place, for the admin, for whatever costs that are associated with it.
Okay, great, thanks. And I've been to a couple of your events.
Okay.
Thank you. And so I guess the question goes back to the outcomes, right? And I think the AMBER program is fabulous, and I think the outcomes that you laid out are great. My issue is that you win the lottery when you go through this program, right? Because it's very it's a Cadillac model. They get all the bells and whistles. So how do we scale this up? So we're looking at so we had nine people go through, and I think that absolutely appreciate everything that they received, the value that they received, but how do we scale that? So perhaps it's not all the bells and whistles, but instead of 9, we have 90 or 250 people going through these programs. And so have you thought about how you're going to scale this? And from a cost effectiveness perspective, because, you know, I think that the first cohort perhaps is a, you know, a pilot for how do you do it more cost effectively in the next cohort?
Right. The general breakdown on the cost per fellow, per company, would be probably about $10,000 for that longer term 7-month program. Now that we have reduced that to 16 weeks and actually scaled down on making sure that we focus a little bit more directly on those KPIs, what their specific challenges are, knowing where they are when they begin and what they're trying to get to, and then looking at providing them more subject matter expertise within 6 to 12 months later, so that we go back to them, let them go ahead and execute what they have learned and what resources we're connecting them to, then come back to them and provide a little bit more time. The cost will come down, but that's where I talked about, you know, that whole ecosystem and that whole network, and it's not just your funding, it's the fact that you have allowed us to start a program that can go and get funding from other sources. And it's much easier to talk to other sources to bring those, in order to round out that funding so that it you know, covers more philanthropic, individual donations, you know, corporate sponsorships. And that's, I think, how we have to scale up. I don't think it's always about coming back to the county for more money. You know, we hire the people that we use as mentors are Black businesses or minority businesses in the county. And like LEDC, we do support any small minority business. You're not just supporting Latino businesses, you know, any business that comes to you can get support. We do the same thing. So we do have small white businesses, we have, you know, Latino businesses, and we make sure that we have culturally appropriate mentors and coaches that are working with them in order to make sure that they get what they need. But I think, you know, kind of coming back to, you know, how can we make this a little bit more curriculum oriented while still making it individualized, so that we continue to do the good work over 16 weeks, and then what the follow-on has to be, and looking at the other resources that we can bring in.
Yeah, and I think that from that perspective of being more concise with the knowledge, you know, the skills acquisition will help.
Right.
For me, it's the issue of, you know, what is the best use of the dollars that we spend? And I think that the program's a fabulous program, but it's a fabulous program for 9 individuals.
Right.
It needs to be a fabulous program for the money that we're spending. It needs to just expand. I'd love to talk with you about how to do that.
Absolutely.
And then the environmental scan, I didn't see that in the outcomes. Is that the same?
You don't have the final report yet, so that is coming to you. We'll submit that, or we're submitting that to the Business Center team this week. And there was a draft report. It indicated what the results of the survey were, but not all of the results of the discussions in the focus groups. And now that we have got the final report, you know, ready, we can submit that, and we can have another discussion if you like about that. Again, it was actually, I sat in on every focus group, and it was very much more positive than I thought it would be. I thought there would be a little bit of bashing going on. Well, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know, or I called somebody, I never got a call back. It really wasn't. It really was, there's a lot of resources. We don't know how to navigate. We don't know where to start. Some people just didn't know anything, where to start with any one office, and you know, lots of opportunity.
Yeah.
Just making sure
Right,
that it's organized.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that. I think that would be very helpful, particularly for a brand new committee,
Yeah.
the Economic Development
And it'll
Committee.
help our work going forward next year, looking at how we're continuing those conversations in the community, how we're working with other organizations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then just from the database, I think that's great. I mean, one of the aspects that we've talked about forever, for years, is that the county doesn't have a database of businesses. So I think that's important. So I misread, or the packet wasn't a little bit clear. It said 29 profiles. I didn't know what those were in relation to the 500 businesses that were listed.
Right. So with the county funding, what we do is issue business profiles. So we collect the businesses, and then on a monthly basis, we have 2 profiles that we issue that talk about the business. It's like a story about the business, how they were founded, how the county, why they are in the county, just to build some intimacy and awareness of the
I see
of
that.
the businesses.
Yeah,
that
I
are
was
here.
confused by what that was.
Yeah.
So thank you. And then, so I noticed that the funding for the Business Council, is that for 2024? Is there is no funding for 2024? How does that work?
Yeah,
Or is it-
I'll jump in for that one. So the funding for the Black Chamber, Black Collective, and Black Business Council, the appropriation that first came out was at the very end of 22, and then 23 also had funding. And so between fiscal 22, fiscal 23, and fiscal 24, the executive staff have worked to make sure all of that funding. So for the Black Business Council, they are still working technically on fiscal 23 funding. So it's not that they don't have funding. It's
Okay.
that the funding of all 3 organizations are kind of wrapped up together in that, but through 2 different contracts.
Okay, great, thank you. And then just the geographic diversity of the database?
So most of the companies are, you mean where they are in the county?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of the companies are in the Silver Spring, Germantown, and also Germantown area, because the way we actually get people registered is very organic. People finding businesses that are Black owned is actually a very manual, relationship-based project. And I actually end up going to, so if you asked the question about how many employees each of the different organizations have, you're looking at the one resource, and we're really a volunteer-run organization. So I go to networking events at partner organizations like the MBCC or the Black Collective or MCEDC events, and tell people about the directory and get them registered. So it's whoever happens to be at those events. A lot of those events end up being in like Rockville or Silver Spring. So I just, over the past couple of weeks, have made a list of the different chambers that are out there, and I'm going to reach out to the different chambers to figure out how to get to some of their networking events. But for me, it's sort of a bandwidth issue in being able to get out to those events.
Of course. So, yeah, thank you. Okay, I think those are my questions for that. And then just LEDC, just a similar, the organizational structure. How many FTEs do you have?
Well, I'm working on the Montgomery County project. We have 2 coaches currently. So one coach is dedicated solely to the Purple Line corridor, so serving businesses along the corridor, and then another coach that's in the office and takes appointments in the office for entrepreneurs and established businesses.
So, thank you. And then the funding increased from before 2023. Is that because of the microloan program and or the Purple Line program?
Again, the funding increased primarily because LADC had a base contract with the county for a long time through the Department of Economic Development. But during the small business rental assistance, I'm sorry, not rental assistance, apologies, small business assistance program at Wheaton, the county did have a contract with them through the incubator NDA. And after that project ended, we went ahead, and the intent, as always, as explained when the Department of Economic Development existed and to the council repeatedly through the budget cycle, was when the small business assistance program finished, the larger amount of funding would be combined with the total contract for LEDC to continue to do similar work county-wide and not just focused in Wheaton. And so that is the reason there was an increase in funding for LEDC that year.
And that was 23 or for 24?
I would need to go back and look. It should have been earlier than 23 based on my understanding.
Yeah. I get.
So, as part of the contract negotiation in FY23, part of the small business assistance, there was $208,000 that was dedicated to Wheaton. So when Wheaton project came to an end, the $208,000 went to the other part of the contract where they expanded their services to Germantown, Gatesburg, and East County, where there were, like underserved area. Within that $208,000, $100,000 was dedicated to the Purple Line particularly. So
Okay.
that is how it was
Great.
broken down.
Thank you. That helps, because my next question was, again, the geographic distribution. So do you have, so the non-Purple Line funding, do you have the geographic distribution of where your businesses are that you assist?
Yes, we do. So I don't have it in front of me, but I would, it's in our latest report, and it's in every report that we submit to the economic committee, to the business center. Love addresses, contact. Yeah.
Super, thank you. And I appreciate what you said about somebody coming in saying that they want to open a food truck because their cousin had a food truck, and how you kind of maneuver that. It's just a lot of hand holding and a lot of really understanding whether they're going to be able to do the business. So I appreciate the work that you do. That resonated with me. So.
Yeah, of course. I guess I should speak about the. I think some of the increase in funding was also toward a legal pilot program too. That we, it was during the pandemic that was established.
Mm-hmm.
And this past year, we provided 6 workshops specifically on the topic of legal concerns for small businesses, and also provided legal consultation for about 6 different businesses. So 6 different clinics where businesses could come and consult with a lawyer, and I think that's something where I would like to continue seeing as part of our programs.
That's great.
Sure.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Great questions. Councilmember Balkan Sales.
Can I go again?
No.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the executive staff and all the organizations that are joined us to provide updates on all the great work you are doing for our small minority-owned businesses. According to a recent study, Maryland ranks number 2 in the nation for successful minority entrepreneurs, so that's something that we should all be proud of. However, Maryland was also named the 47th worst state in the country to start a business. And while I'm very excited about, all of the great work that our minority businesses are doing, compared to the rest of the nation, it looks like we have a lot more work to do with helping our businesses, our minority-owned businesses, get started. And so just wanted to find out, from the beginning we've talked about some of the goals have been to work more strategically with our school system. And I know that the MCEDC will be coming before us soon to talk about a strategic plan, a strategic vision. And I'm just wondering if that strategic vision will include these stakeholders that are before us today, and have you all talked with the Economic Development Corporation about how you all work collectively together to support entrepreneurs moving forward?
So I was hoping, Jake Weissman, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer for the County. Appreciate the question, Councilmember. Was wondering if I can get a little bit of clarification as to what you're talking about there. MCEDC has, with the council's passage, put out a strategic plan that's focused on the strategic industries and kind of the next steps in that regard. Wasn't entirely sure as to what you were referring to as to what's coming out. I know the business center is focused on the needs of, as we've discussed, kind of those 28,000 businesses, these restaurants, retail, service-based, non-strategic industries. Not that every business isn't a strategic focus of the county, but was hoping just to get a little bit more clarification as to what you were talking about.
Just thinking, we have programs that prepare the future workforce for technological, CNA. What programs do we have in place to prepare future entrepreneurs for the next phase, and are we utilizing these stakeholders along with MCPS to create that sort of pipeline?
What I'd like to do, if this is okay, is have a conversation with our partners over at Worksession Montgomery, who I know are working some of this. I know we had a meeting with MCEDC a couple of months ago together with MCPS. Mr. Tompkins pulled us all in a room to have that initial conversation. But I'd like to touch base with the partners at Worksession Montgomery, and if not, make sure that our partners here are in the loop and report back to you on that.
Yes, because I think as we are, mentoring and training entrepreneurs and preparing them to grow and stay in the county, they can also be
absolutely
examples for our young people.
Appreciate that.
And
Council member, can I add? Bill has reached out to the chamber on many occasions, and we're doing lots of collaboration moving forward.
Awesome, very good to hear.
And I will also add to that the Black Collective, the money that we received from PEPCO specifically had a component in there to look at youth entrepreneurship development. So we'll be looking at a short program probably later in the fall.
Good. Javier, did you want to add something?
Nothing to add.
Okay, all right. And just had a few more questions. It sounds like the programs are not are going to a wide variety of folks that you're serving. I know this was supposed to be for Black businesses. You're supposed to serve Latino businesses, and are we tracking the data of? I know Councilmember Balcom asked for geographical data. Are we tracking demographic data for the businesses that are being served by each of these entities?
If I may, I'd just like to clarify one thing so the attorneys don't have my hide. These programs are to help all businesses throughout the county with a focus on MFD businesses. Black Collective, Black Chamber, Black Business Council is not exclusively focused on Black businesses, as the LEDC is not exclusively focused on Latino-owned businesses. That being said, part of what we're doing, and we discussed a bit during the budget cycle, is effort to collect more of this information in terms of businesses we assist through the Business Center directly or through our contract partners. But I don't know if our partners have anything they want to add to that.
I just know that it was mentioned that a report is forthcoming, a final report, so just wanted to know if demographic information will be included on who we're serving, who's actually in this database that's being created, and okay. And so I know that the state, you have to file with the state if you're a small minority-owned businesses, correct?
If you want to be categorized for procurement purposes, so if you're not doing any procurement with the state, you often don't go through the MFD process with the Department of Commerce or Department of Transportation, excuse me.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if there was information that we could access to identify and maybe be proactive in the outreach we're doing to some of our small business and MFD businesses.
Appreciate that question, Councilmember. We've had conversations, as has OLO, in terms of seeing how we can better find this information, including with our partners in the Comptroller's Office and in SDAT. Comptroller's Office gets some information on small businesses because they remit sales tax to them. Unfortunately, the Comptroller does not collect demographic data, nor does SDAT. The only place where we might be able to access demographic data is MFD businesses that register with the state as an MFD business. But there's no requirement when registering a business to put down demographic information, which is why we're trying to organically create our own database and information with that for the county.
Okay. And, you know, we are all aware of last week's Supreme Court ruling striking down affirmative action. How are your organizations preparing for addressing that impact? If you're hearing from any businesses or...
We have not. Well, our companies that are in our cohorts or graduated have kind of been offline for a week or two, so we haven't heard much. But I did hear from a number of Black-led nonprofit organizations, and we are going to be having a conversation about the impact on philanthropic dollars that will come through, what that Supreme Court decision means for philanthropic dollars, and dollars coming from foundations or corporations that were targeted to either black businesses, black-led nonprofits, you know. Yeah. Private companies will have a chance to do what they want to do with their funds if they're not using public funds, but we need to have a bigger conversation. So they've asked for some kind of a session on that.
And if I may add, Council Member, the Supreme Court's backwards decision at this point does not touch Crossan or other opinions that have to do with MFD procurement or other steps that the government can take to lift up black and brown owned businesses. Obviously, we are worried as to what the Supreme Court might do on any number of fronts, but this county remains committed to doing everything we can to expand access for black and brown entrepreneurs.
Okay. It would be helpful if we have any concerns and any information that we can push out to this network. We have a database, and I see that 7 newsletters have been created. Are these circulating within this database, or where are these newsletters going?
They go to all the, we have a mailing list that is not only with the people in the database, it's anybody that's interested in getting information about the BBD businesses. Okay. So those newsletters go on a monthly basis out to everybody that's registered or subscribed to in our newsletter list.
Okay. Thank you all.
So, President Glass.
Really good discussion. Thank you. And I'm going to pick up on the spot where Councilmember Sells left off, and his a sentiment that's been shared by many people during today's conversations. And it is just being very frank about the reason why we are investing in your organizations. It is because there have been historic inequities, and we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to succeed, that every business has a shot at procurement opportunities, business opportunities, and any other types of entrepreneurial ventures that exist or could exist. That's it, full stop. And it has been shared with me over the last 2 years, questions about why an investment in a particular chamber might have been made as opposed to another, and I say that recognizing a former chamber CEO is a member of this committee, rightfully an outstanding member of this committee, but it is because investments had historically not been made. So we're having this conversation, and I don't know who said it, but I took a note while I was listening that people need a chance. I think it might have been Ms. Perry. I don't know. It was. There we go. That's it. And so that's what these investments are. And I think it was stated also before, the opportunity for you all to listen to the conversation with the Purple Line. Lots of similarities, and I appreciate the chair for pairing these two. So you've heard from all of us about data and about information. We want to be able to help you so that you can continue helping entrepreneurs in our community, and having that information I think would be helpful. Recognizing a team of one. Congratulations on your full-time stature, Ms. Jones. And so recognizing the limitations that exist, the more information and, quite frankly, the success stories that you can provide with what opportunities are started and what that turns into. The training, the roadmaps, the navigating, all incredibly important. But what those lead to is ultimately the most important metric. And so that leads me to the only question I have, because all the good questions have been asked already. You all are helping people navigate what is, quite frankly, a very complex process. It's challenging. And what I would love is for you to document what those challenges are. What bumps in the road are people experiencing? What paperwork is so complex that people have given up? What application is so long that focus has been given to someone's full-time day job, right? And so all of us here are here because we want to help cut red tape. We want to help streamline processes. There is an OLO report that will be coming out in short order about streamlining processes at this local, state, county level, something all of us are committed to again, and that will help provide some more information, but document that as well and share it with us. And then the complement to that is, while there is cutting of red tape and streamlining of processes, there's also the legislative function. It has been noted, the work that we do and how you would like to engage with us. When there's legislation and regulation that is before us, I'd very much like to know your thoughts. Yeah. We hear from all the other chambers. We hear from all the other business groups that are not technically chambers, but they are working to make sure that everybody can succeed in our local economy. And so when you see something, say something. Because the last thing we want to do is provide financial support to help people on one hand, and on the other hand, raise our hand to pass a piece of legislation that might inhibit those efforts. And so I'm asking for you to share your thoughts with us. Please don't be shy, because your colleagues are not shy. Ultimately we're all on the same team. We want to help you, and recognizing that sometimes those conversations might be difficult because some of the laws or regulations that we're talking about might help your members in other ways. And so it's a left brain, left hand, right hand kind of issue of how do we help people holistically. And it's complex, I understand that. But ultimately we want to hear from you in that way too. And so appreciate you spending your time with us. Look forward to these continued conversations, the information, the advocacy. And it doesn't necessarily have to be testifying, but writing a letter, contacting us, letting us know how we can do our work here to help you do your work out in the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments. I will just end this great session today, not just you, but also the Purple Line group, by saying two things. One, we're going to have a session in the fall about the office market. Mr. Rivas, you touched about leases, making sure people understand what they're signing. That should be part of that session, so I'm going to follow up with you, and also you as well. If you have any feedback among your clients about their experiences signing leases, that's really important. So we'll do that, and then we'll look forward to seeing your report about the perception of doing business in Montgomery County, right? And I also love that we briefly touched base about crime in housing. That has everything to do with the business conversation that we're having. Housing not only for the employees, but also for people who are going to shop in their stores and so on. With that, I truly thank you for your time. I need to wrap it up because I have another committee session with another committee after this. And thank you so much, and we look forward to continuing our partnership with you all. And with that, we're done in this committee today. Thank you.